everyone. Co-parent Roland Toko Inoua. I am super excited to welcome you to the first ever Exceptional Learners series. Look, at Academy X, we don't just celebrate our students. In fact, we probably should celebrate our students more, but we don't just celebrate our students. We celebrate also the people who make our learning spaces exceptional. So the ones behind the scenes, the ones in Zooms, the ones on the Slack threads, and in the hearts of our learners, because we know exactly what community means to both ourselves and the people that we learn with. But because we're all lifelong learners here, our mission is really simple: to make sure this is the place where you can reach your summit, where curiosity is celebrated, where care is systematized, and every step, every single learning step is designed to support your growth. So in this special series, we're spotlighting our exceptional educators, advisors, mentors, and guides who shape what learning feels like here at Academy X. And there's no better place to start than with Dr. Debi, kia ora, our Director of Teaching and Learning, and who is quite frankly a force of nature. She's probably the warmest intellect you'll ever meet, part teacher, part soul whisperer. I can say this having laid in front of her before. A design nerd with a giant heart who can build a teaching framework and hold space like no one else. And a Pacifica powerhouse who brings cultural depth, clarity, and care to every room she's in, and quite possibly the only person who could make well-being feel both sacred and strategic. So this is your chance to meet Debi. It's our chance to hear her story and learn the way we design learning here, because it matters just as much as what we teach is how we teach it. Yes? Yeah. Let's dive in. Hi, Debi. You're exceptional.
Oh, thank you. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
Oh, it is my whole aim in these to make you feel as uncomfortable as possible by telling you how great you are.
Well, I feel humbled. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, it's been humbling and enjoyable to have you join us here at Academy X and bring your mana and wisdom to the space in such a profound and quick way. So I'm really excited for everyone to hear who you are and what we do. And we'll dive in, shall we? All right, let's do it. So you have spent decades working across education, research, and community. What keeps you energized in this space?
I think, I started life out as a teacher. And actually, before that, I was a student who was in quite a lot of trouble at school. And then I became an educator. And I wanted to really think about how do we make sure that all children and all students are catered for, really? And so that's been my driving force. I don't think I definitely planned being a teacher, but going to Futter-Puati and Wellington Teachers College in the 80s changed my life. I met some amazing tutors there, Kenny Carr, Tiffany O'Regan, Tim Moana Hodges, amazing Māori Pacifica lecturers, and I became really involved in that space, probably because my partner is a Cook Islander and we got together in the final year of high school. And so I was really welcomed into a Cook Islands family and became really interested in Pacifica and Māori space. And so the more I learned, the more I realised I don't know. And even, on a PhD looking at health and wellbeing with young people in the Cook Islands, and the more you learn, the more there is to learn, and the more questions that you find in front of yourself in terms of how do we learn from what young can tell us, how do we learn from our students, that it's that reciprocal teaching and learning all the time, and that everybody has a different viewpoint. There's a lot of, for me in education, there's a lot of work to be done in social equity, in terms of social justice and thinking about diverse leaders. It just never stops. So the education, the research, the learning is just cyclic, going around and around and around. 40 years of being an educator and I'm still learning. So I guess that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. I still think there's a lot to learn. I still think that we don't always get it right. And I think that we can learn the most that we can learn as educators is from our students.
Tell me that again, because I feel like it really taps into that concept of lifelong learning. The more you learn, the more you have to learn, especially from students.
Yeah, I guess probably a lot of your alumni after their research projects actually ended up with a whole lot of questions at the end of it, as well as some findings. But what we do when we're doing our research is that we think we're going to find answers, but often what we discover are more questions that we leave as maybe stepping stones for the next people that research, or people that go on and do a PhD or a postdoc, or whatever it looks like. Research doesn't have to be in an academic space. Research can be done in your communities when you're researching your own whakapapa, for example, and finding out who's in my family and where do I fit in society. Research can be sort of multidimensional. It doesn't have to be academic. Yeah.
So that's great. It's fabulous to hear that what keeps you going is learning more and bringing more people and also leaving space behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that line, then, you've described education as something that should uplift. What does that look like to you?
I think if children and adults who are in tertiary providers don't flourish, then we're not doing something right. So we can't just be thinking about our teaching and learning programs as what we deliver in a lecture or in a classroom. We need to be thinking about the whole environment, the holistic nature of the people that we're working with. So yes, we might be catering to their mental and emotional health by giving them academic learning, but how are we also catering to their wider health and wellbeing through the program? Are we connecting them with other people through their social connectedness? Are we making sure the environment is mentally and emotionally safe, physically safe, and what about spiritually safe? And our values and beliefs are that everybody should be heard and everybody should be participating, and that diverse learning and diverse learners are catered for. And what about the physical space? Is it online? Is it in the classroom? Is it a safe physical place to be in terms of, is somebody going to be laughed at if they get something wrong, or are they going to be safe enough to ask a question because they're scared, because they might think they can get done? So, it's not just the content of the lecture or the classroom or the mathematics lesson or whatever. It's actually the holistic way that we think about education and ensuring that people love being there, that they have the chance to flourish and grow and learn from each other as well as the teacher. But, we're all learning from each other today.
Maybe we need to start. I think language is really important. I'm throwing you a curveball. I did give Debbie some pre-recognized questions, but I also should warn her that she's on a roller coaster ride where we go in very many places. I'm really curious to understand when you use the word well-being. What is that? What does that empathy map look like? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you smelling? I don't know. What is that moment? How do you recognize it in the wild? What are you looking for?
Well, I guess one of the things through my journey myself, and being a kid at school who wasn't being catered for because my well-being wasn't great, and I look back at that time and I think, how did none of the adults around me realise that what I was doing when I was being naughty was actually asking for help? And so that stayed with me. I mean, I didn't reflect on that at the time until I was quite a lot older and had been a teacher for a while and ended up becoming a resource teacher of learning and behaviour. And the area that I focused on was behaviour. And so I truly believe that no child wakes up in the morning and thinks, I'm going to make everybody's life hell today. So if we're seeing things in a classroom, for example, or in society where people are deemed as breaking the rules or naughty kids, that kind of thing, then there's actually something underneath that, and we need to find out what's going on for them so that we can try and provide that for them in another way. So this is about health and wellbeing. So as an RTLB, a lot of my interventions became about health and wellbeing.
RTLB is
As a resource teacher of learning and behaviour, sorry, it's education speak, but
that's okay.
Yeah. So an RTLB itinerates around schools and helps families and children and teachers problem solve. We just put our brains with with a whole lot of other brains, and together we work it out with people who know their child best about how best to care for them in a classroom or in school. So I was an ITLB for quite a long time, and I realised that underneath most behaviour was health and wellbeing issues. I was also doing some extra study as a teacher. In those days, when I studied in the 80s, you did a diploma and not a degree. And so you could do advanced courses, and so I went along and met this incredible woman called Dr. Gillian Tasker, and she was doing health education and what that might look like. And it was not just about the scabs and running noses and how to get a like bottom. It was wider than that, it brought me into places to think about, Māori might call it, whare te whā, Pacifica might call it whare whare, or Rose Petty's work is about a whike, an octopus. So it's multi-dimensional. For Collins, we call it kitsuenua, so there's lots of different ways of thinking about health and wellbeing that could be multi-dimensional. And if you look at those Indigenous health and wellbeing models, our health is interconnected. They're not just thinking about going to a doctor, thinking about how to stay well. We're thinking about the skills, not just the knowledge, but the skills to keep ourselves well. And then it's in the classroom, at home, when we're walking out in the community, when we're playing sport. So that whole health and wellbeing became really integral to everything that I do as within my life. Yeah.
So we were going to put well-being on a t-shirt or a card that we want to give all of our advisors and learners and leaders here. What would that card say in terms of well-being?
That's a very good question. I mean, a lot of Indigenous communities might have a whakatauki that they might use it resonates with them around health and wellbeing. I've been living in the Cox for the last 22 years. And so we have a saying there, when you plant your petal, which is your afterbirth in the ground, the world becomes your oyster. Okay, so it's sort of like different people will think about it differently. Some people might, Māori use whare nui, the tradition in the medicine house around, I don't know what the words would be, because I think that actually be different for every single person. And, when I've done work with students, I've asked them to do a sculpture, like in the sand or with clay or with flowers or those sorts of things about a representation of health and wellbeing for the group. It's always different. So I think it's very unique. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. We'll get it on a t-shirt very quickly.
We'll have to think about that.
So if we were gonna plant our afterbirth here, how do you define well-being? How would we define well-being here then at Academy X? And how is that different from, say, the mainstream?
I think I've only been at Academy X for this is week 6.
Yeah.
And so, from what I can see at the moment, and I trust my instinct and I trust intuition. And so what I see when I walk into Academy X is a very welcoming environment where students and staff, there's not a hierarchy. There's this lovely wider around where people are laughing, connected. I feel supported in terms of that I can ask people any question without seeming dumb. We just say that behind the back.
Nothing you're doing in the bathroom walls, I'll tell you that.
But where you can feel comfortable to not know something. And I've noticed that with students, that there's a lot of wraparound support for the students, which I think has been great. I've been jumped in and did some marking in the NCOR and NTF program, and what I really noticed when we were talking about students is how caring people were in terms of supporting people to ensure that they succeed. And I think that you don't see that. Like I've worked in a lot of universities in my career, you do not always see that. This is the date. If it's not in, I'm sorry, you're out. Whereas here, what I'm seeing is that the people leading programs are invested in making sure they succeed. And I think that is the way of the future. I think it's always been the way that I've worked in terms of negotiating outputs because of people's lives and their health and well-being, things fall over. And you don't want to fail a student because they have a curveball come at them. You all have curveballs, so let's find a way around it. Let's keep the process rigorous, but find a way to support people to achieve what they need to achieve. And I get that sense for staff as well as students, so it's a really nice beginning. I've also started to sort of pull back the layers a bit in some of the courses in terms of where does Te Futter-Puati, which is Academy X framework for success, where is it woven within and throughout the courses? And I don't know the answer to that yet, but I can see that it is. And I think that's probably a strength, because when you weave in health and wellbeing within and throughout your courses, then you will have success for the students participating in. And I think that that's exciting. Yeah, pretty cool.
Oh, I'm torn between wanting to go down one path or another, and I'm stuck at a crossroads. Let's explore Futter-Puati for a quick second here. So Futter-Puati is our path to success. It's literally translated as such, and it is our learning strategy, basically, that weaves its way through the entire Academy X ecosystem. Everything is impacted or designed with those values and practice in mind. And what I really love about it is that it has our students are the Koru in the center, and then around it you have, pathways that lead up the mountain to that peak. And that peak is supported by teachers and learners, but it's also supported by students and the activities that they're doing in that space. A lot of organizations talk about students are at the center of everything they do, but I also know that the more dynamic the education, the smaller the feed. It's very easy for us to put wraparound support around really young kids. I think it's really interesting that we're wrapping large amounts of support around really old kids, aka 44-year-olds, like, who are coming to us and going, "What do I do with my life? What am I supposed to be when I grow up? How can I find people that really help me become, or will support me in becoming that next thing?" When we talk about student well-being inside that space, how can we help people figure out who they want to be when they grow up in a community that wants them to find that out without well-being?
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either.
No,
That was it was sort of a softball of a question, but
yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on why we can't.
Yeah, I think when we talk to people about what's true to their hearts and what they want to be when they grow up, whether we can find a match between the two, then we're talking about passion. And when the cliches of when you're working and it doesn't feel like a job because you actually love what you're doing. If we can map out a way forward to do those kinds of things, and that's what I'm seeing in the projects that people are designing for their research process through the master's programs, is that they are connecting with their passion points. And so what they're doing is creating a pathway for themselves through their passion, through what's true to their hearts, as a way forward for their potential job. And so, that for me is really exciting, Yeah.
Say that again.
Can I say that again?
Yeah.
When we map out what's in somebody's heart and a joy point for them with a passion project, and we find a way forward for them to do that as their job, then we're rocking and rolling, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So we often talk about student well-being as it's this static thing, like, oh, we'll just, fill their well-being. But I think what I'm hearing from this conversation and the work that you've done is that, it's really layered and complex. We use words like holistic, we use words like coming together with lots of brains to figure out how to solve a problem. Like, those are complex or even chaotic problems that we need to solve. What is it that most people really misunderstand about student well-being?
I think when we talk about the words health, people think very old school about what health is, about the physical health. They think about, the kind of how to brush your teeth, or nose kind of
Wipe your butt.
All of those.
That was a big
They are
moment.
important things. But when you look at more broadly around well-being, begin to the physical aspect of health is only one thing. And often people are thinking about being unwell rather than being well. And so that flipping of the way, how do we support people starting from children or pre-birth, first 1,000 days research is really interesting, from conception around the health foundations that are laid right there and then in those first 1,000 days of life that have ripples right through the rest of your life. And it's really fascinating the things that we're learning all the time. But we need not just knowledge but skills to keep ourselves well. Every single person will experience a challenging, traumatic time in their life. What skills are we teaching for people to manage that? So that we know, we understand that this will be part of our life, that we will not make, I don't know, the rugby team or the netball team, that we might be made unemployed, that we might lose a person that we love dearly, you know, all sorts of things that we might lose our home, you know, all of those things, the different tragic things that can happen in anyone's life, and having the skills to be able to manage that when, because there's always a when something happens to you where you are experiencing change, loss, grief. So keeping yourself well through a process like that, knowing how to ask for help. What helps me keep myself well when I'm feeling stressed, when I'm really stressed? What, you know, some of us will eat not enough, some of us will eat too much, you know, those, you know, the things that we all know that we do for ourselves to self-medicate. But yeah, so it's all of that. And I think that we underestimate that people need to be taught those things. And I think in my experience as through working through tertiary education now for a long time is that many adults have never been taught those things about how to keep themselves well. And in fact, we self-medicate ourselves a lot. Just not necessarily sometimes.
Well, actually, so we've got an activity and an exceptional series first on teaching us how to explore those skills. Shall we do that?
We talked about it as like a little warrant of fitness.
Yes, I love this. The idea of a warrant of fitness, I think especially now, being that it's almost the end of July, we're closer now to the end of the year, apparently closer to 2050 than we ever were before, which is heart palpitating. And then seeing how we're all checking in. So I volunteered as guinea pig. Okay, and walk us through.
And you did your homework.
I know, everyone's very surprised. I'm quite obedient if I get the right incentive.
This is an activity which I think is really useful for us to be reflective on ourselves, but you can use it with groups of people as well. And I've used it in a number of situations before to begin to think about what helps us to be well and what are the barriers for us to be well. So what we start with is a piece of paper and we just draw a body outline. Okay, so like a gingerbread person. So there we go, we've got one on the screen. And it's much more beautiful than anyone that I have ever drawn, you know, in any of the activities that I have done. So I've done this activity with children, teenagers, with young adults, with, you know, mature adults. And I think it's a really interesting one. So on the inside of the body, if you've got a few moments, or if you're watching once it's being recorded, you can just press pause. Just make out a body outline on a piece of paper, and on the inside, write down all the things that are really important to you when you think about what helps to keep you well. So for me, something like I need to see sunlight, I need to be outdoors at some point in the day. I need to laugh, I need decent food. I'm a hungry girl, I have to eat lots. But I'm a bit fussy about what I eat, so I need good food. I like the occasional gin and tonic and chippies. Those are all things that help my wellness. I need to connect with my family. You will all have different things to put in there, so you just take a few moments to think about what are the important things in my life that I need to keep me well. Sleep, everyone. Yeah, so you did that little.
I did the work, and this is my picture.
You can see that.
I'm not sure we can. It's okay. It's not. This isn't
Can I ask
Sistine
you-
Chapel sort of equipment here.
So what did you put on the inside for me?
So on the inside for me, I put cuddles.
Yeah.
I don't know why I started with that one, but that was the one it's sitting, it's right there. Food, both cooking, reading, and sharing food. Sleep, laughter, service, big picture, small kindness, deep talks and thinks, great design, and I've got my people and shoes.
Yeah.
Mostly because it has giant feet, and so like we have those things.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you a picture that we could put up on the newsletter that we've got going. You all will, no criticisms.
I mean, and if you took more time, you'd probably put some more things in there too, but like you've got people in there, you've got like, so that's your social health, you've got food in there, which is your physical health.
Yeah.
And sleep, which is your physical health.
Yeah.
You've got service, which I think speaks to your values and beliefs, which is our spiritual health. And what have you got in there in terms of the environment? Big pictures. And so thinking about big pictures, and it's like knowing where you're going, isn't it? It's like having sort of a map forward, but taking a big picture about not just today's stuff, but why that. Yeah, and so that's social connectedness as well. So you see with parents mapping that she's done about what makes her healthy, that there are a variety of ways of thinking about health. And there are some interconnectedness between those things. So there's personal things, but there's things with other people, there's things in the environment, there's things in the community. And then there's the values and beliefs that she brings to what keeps her healthy.
What's interesting is, because then you do the outside part, right? So this is the stuff that's keeping you from getting healthy, like the barriers or blockers.
Yes, so those things that you've identified are what's called protective factors. They protect you, they keep you well. I mean, if you do those things, they'll keep you well. And on the outside of the body outline that you've got going on there, if you're doing it at home or wherever you're watching this from, is to start to think about what makes it hard for me to be healthy. What are the things that make it more difficult? And to start to write those around the outside of the body. So what we're doing is identifying for ourselves the things that happen in our lives that take us away from being healthy. We all have a multitude of different things that are there. It could be that, that your values aren't being seen in the place that you work. You don't feel valued. It might be that, you're disenfranchised from people that you care from or a long way away. It might be that actually healthy food is too expensive, or that you don't have anyone to talk to. I mean, there's multiple different things that you could put on the outside of that body. And there's obviously personal things that are directly around you, but there's also social and political things like not being able to access healthcare if you need it. With those bigger environmental things that are happening too. So you did that too?
I did, and this is some serious vulnerability about to share here. What's interesting for the things that I wrote down was I was almost very, very specific on tactile, articulated, like a moment, right? Like a cuddle or food or sleep. But the stuff that sits on the outside are like these big, ginormous, amorphous, you can't point to them sort of thing. So for example, probably the most critical one is time. So I have time so is there enough time in the day? Is there enough time to get things done? Is the schedule? So there's that. But what I do have is just general fear. And I wrote big, small, and no control, because I'm thinking about, socio-political fear, like this bananas timeline that we're on, the fact that I'm American, and that's a challenge right now with what's happening in the space. And I'm worried about my family and the fact that their experiences are not connecting with the news that we get out of the world. So there's like a disconnect. And so that's scary. Simple fears, not so simple fears about, what's the world my kid's gonna grow up in? Like the world he's gonna grow up in is like the world I grew up in is very different from my parents, but at least they could, it had roots, it had something to hook into. None of us can imagine the world that our kids are about to grow up to because it's changing so bloody fast that you can't keep up. So I have no idea, and that's terrifying because I want to be able to have a pathway for him to go on. And yes, I know, don't at me, he's supposed to walk his own path, but I'm a mother and a bricklayer, and I'm going to make sure he's got a path. And then just sort of relatively like, if he doesn't know his path, oh crap, he's gonna figure out that I don't know my path, and now I'm a fraud, and I'm gonna get, and on all the other things start to show up. So perceptions, fear of not being good or smart or liked enough, failure, like no transparency, dishonesty, mistrust, like all the things that are kind of battering around inside that space. And you know, all of which is like, do I have the tools and the words in which to navigate such, I feel like I need to lie down. Like, do I have the tools and the words to navigate all that?
Think you just
Stuff.
like every other parent that I know that can sit worried about the future and whether you've got the skills to do it, and you have. Because what it comes down to is love and nurture. And doing what you can do on a daily basis, but you're really thinking about the future. But some things are on a macro level that you can't influence. Right. So that's part of the process of this kind of activity. What can you influence and what can't you? And where can you actually be recognizing the things that you can make, where you can make changes in your life? Like, if you're going to spend all your time worrying about the future of the child and the future of the world, it's going to incapacitate you, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what can you do on the things that make it hard to be healthy on the outside that you can have some control over, like time? Can you actually structure in some management of your time so that you actually don't feel quite so stressed about that? But where can you make a difference on the timeline and the way to, like, I gave you chocolate lollies, for example.
Oh, yes, please.
And you've got all the people that are important to you. Where would you give the most lollies to?
So I have to hand out the lollies to people who are important to me.
20.
Yeah.
Let's say 40 hours a week.
Oh, I see what
So,
you're doing.
so you might want to give them all to your family, but you probably don't want to give them all to your family. You would give them out. And if that was hours, how can you think about that? I mean, that's starting to strategize about where you can make change and where it's possibly make change.
So your lolly hours are chocolate flavored.
Anyway, you can do I mean,
I feel like mine are licorice flavored,
Yeah.
like, you know, they're not that great.
Some things that we were talking about the other day when we talked about health is that we get told not to eat sugar.
Yeah.
But actually, sugar for me, every now and then, is fantastic for my health because it's just what I need in terms of my stress management. And so thinking about, I don't subscribe to good and bad stuff. I subscribe to all things in moderation kind of idea. I think.
Was it Mae West who said I do everything in moderation, including moderation?
Yeah. We talked about the missing discourse of pleasure when it comes to food. We told we have to work ourselves into the ground in terms of our fitness. We have to never eat anything that's remotely unhealthy. But I mean, these are all unrealistic targets to get to. And actually, when I sit down with people I love and eat lovely food, that some of it might be alcohol, some of it might be sugar, and definitely lots of salt and oil on there for sure, just about guaranteed. But that's actually really great for my wellness, because it's one of the most important things that I would have on the inside of my outline is connection with friends and family around food. So the way we think about health and well-being is different to all of us. Think about Indigenous communities. Connectedness with people is fundamental. It's not a sort of a kind of way of thinking about health and wellness as in your physical. So, I think that social connectedness is incredibly important, and thinking about how you surround yourself with people that help you to be well, an environment that helps you to be well, people that look after you and think about the ways that you do You know, you're doing that for your child, and I bet your child does it for you too.
Yes, it's the cuddles are right up there.
Yeah.
Do we want to see an example of
Yeah.
other folks who are doing?
So this slide that's going to come up is I did this activity with a group of young people in the Cook Islands, and these were high school students, and these are the business run groups, things that they put down in terms of what healthy would mean to them. So good food, the kai-kais, yeah. Trust, safety, knowing themselves, what their culture is fundamental to them, their friends, having some exercise or sport, knowing what their goals are, you know, fun and laughter, really important. Church was really important for this group. Knowing the skills to cook good food, because I think that's one of the things that often that not always know how to cook these days. Knowing when I need help, which I think is so important, and being able to talk to others. So those are some of the, knowing first aid. So you've got some of the traditional kind of ideas around health, but good thoughts. And how important is the way we think and the way turning around our thoughts, right? Because we've all got that little voice in our head that says you're not good enough, or you can't do that, or being able to switch those thoughts around and turn them around is so important. Hygiene, knowing who I am as cookies, short for Cook Islander. So that was some of their things. And I think as adults, we have a lot of those things as well. And on the outside, you can see that they've got some really, like as adolescents at high school, they're all sneaking out to parties. And but equally, the cultural expectations put on them were pretty strong, and they felt that that was harder for them to be healthy with the amount of cultural expectations that were put on them. And some of them couldn't get off the islands. So this activity was done in one of the outer islands, and so they're quite remote. Abuse. Sometimes it's words, sometimes it's fists, and sometimes it's sex happening, and sexual abuse happening in the community. The stress being told I'm stupid. You can see that all of the different activities about different things that are there. Cost of healthy food in the pioneer is really a big one, so it is more difficult to access food. And people in Aotearoa would have some of those same challenges as well, I'm sure. Yeah, so not being allowed to do so gender stereotypes, do something because I'm a boy or a girl. You know, that would be no matter what community you're working in. Big scared, having no friends is one of the big ones. Making sure that you have that social connectedness. So you can see. So I would, if I had more time today, we could take this activity where we actually look at 5 dimensions of health, of our mental and emotional health, our physical health, spiritual, environmental health, and what I missed. Did I say mental and emotional? I can't remember. No, 5, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, environmental, and social. The social, thank you. So social health. And actually do a little symbol for each one of those and put them on the inside and then on the outside, which one you think they directly connect to. And what you'll begin to see is the interconnectedness of all of those different aspects of health in the way that nothing sits by itself. You know, if our physical health is unwell, if we're physically unwell, we can't go to work, we can't see the people that we love, we're stuck at home. So immediately your mental and emotional and social health is impacted. So none of those things sit by themselves, and understanding the interconnectedness and the way that they work is beginning to really understand how important everything is to our health and well-being.
Gotcha. Inside, outside, connectedness, and then you come up with how do you mitigate in order to keep your internal health going. Yes.
Yeah, so it's, you know, really, really, I think people need to sort of almost practice
Yeah.
how they might need to say or do something before it comes along, because when you're in a traumatic or a tough situation or unwell for whatever reason or what it kind of unwell it might be, if you've never been in that situation before, you don't quite know how to manage it or who to reach out to get help from. Whereas if we have the knowledge and the skills to be able to reach out and get help when we need it, because we all will need it. There's no doubt about it. And somewhere in your life, then we're much less likely to, we're much more likely to become unable.
Here you go. You know, I say this a lot, but adulting is hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being a kid, I think right now is a bit harder. And I wish I could say it always gets better, but maybe it does a little. It does in different ways, right? But practicing the skills and skills you need to maintain health and well-being, that's an aha moment.
And I think it's not happening much in schools anymore, but it's all.
I'm not sure it's happening much full stop, to be honest with you.
You know, to be, you know, you need to be able to do all of those sorts of skills in your life as well as reading, writing, tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Far out, yeah. So if we were thinking about, if a future learner is listening, and we hope you are, especially one who isn't sure they belong in postgraduate study, what would you want them to know about learning with us based on our corridor right now?
But one of the reasons that I applied for the job with Academy is the fact that this institution is working in non-traditional ways and often with non-traditional students. And I feel like traditional universities have lost their way in it. And it's, yes, they are the right place for some people, but they're absolutely not the right place for a lot of people. And a lot of people that I've worked with over the years started uni and dropped out because of what they felt like a number or they felt no connectedness. What I see at Academy X, and I say this from working with a student last year on her master's project while I was based on Cook Islands, and she was using the arts for around health and wellbeing and in the NCORE program. And we just lost the lights. Maybe we're not.
Oh, look, it's like
do we have to? We
it's
need to get up and boogie. We
you
need
have to go
get up
outside and open up the door, and it's the connector. Yeah, look at this. It's like disco time.
There we go. Oh, we obviously do. Yeah.
As I like to say, it tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Speak the unexpected.
Expect the unexpected. Sorry, you asked your student.
Yeah, so I mean, she was her project in the NCORE project was to use the arts for mental health, for health and wellbeing in and outer island of Islands. And so in the previous life I developed with the community at Cook Islands model for health and wellbeing called Pennsylvania. And so she was using that. And so that was my first experience of Academy X. She said she was a student at Academy X, and I was thinking, who the heck is that? And went online and had a look and just thought, this is interesting. And then worked with her through the process of her to complete her master's project and the work that she was doing with young people on ArtU. And I was really impressed. And then this job came up and I just kind of threw my hat in the ring and here I am.
You are.
And so that was what was interesting to me was non-conventional pathways, recognise prior learning, so understanding that people have vast experiences to bring into the tertiary space, and that just because they don't have an undergraduate degree doesn't mean to say they're not ready for it. And I really liked that kaupapa, and I think that it's unique and important and exciting actually. Yeah.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our first learner series conversation, and I don't think we could have asked for a better place to start. Debbie doesn't just, of course, teach or lead. You really embody the change that we want to see in education. Yeah. And your approach reminds me that when we put care and culture and curiosity at the center, learning becomes something expansive. It becomes more than what we are. It's transformative, it's uplifting, it's a little magical. So I want to say thank you. This series is all about celebrating people behind the systems, those who quietly and some not so quietly, but powerfully shape how we learn, grow, and thrive here at Academy X. Debbie, thank you again for showing us what it means to lead with heart. You are exceptional, and we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
How do you do?
Thank you.